This is Star Trek Bridge Crew, and we are aboard the original recipe, Starship Enterprise. Now, I'm doing this video because I want to help you learn how to memorize all the buttons on this bridge and be able to use them without the help overlay, because this ship is really fun to use and it looks really cool. You know, it's almost like a nightclub. You got this nice ambience here and these cool lights. You got some hot chicks on here as well. Every home should have one of these by now. I don't know why we don't. Right? You just got the big screen. We can watch movies, play games. Every station. You know, what is all this for? Obviously, it's a place for your drinks and your chips and whatever. You can set some drinks on the bar there. So this is a really cool bridge, but the first time you get on here, it freaks everybody out because we have all these buttons, but they're not marked at all. There's not even a icon on the weapons that shows what they are or whatever, right? You can bring up your help overlay, but that just looks like a clusterfuck. And if you rely on the help overlay, you still have to dig through here and like, okay, where is the fire? Where's the scan? All this stuff, right? So it's a lot more fun to play if you memorize the buttons and learn how the buttons are kind of organized on each panel. So I'm going to give you a lot of tips here, and what else do we want to say here? This is the beginning of the research mission, and if you want to, you know, take your time and jump around from station to station like this and get comfortable with all the buttons and try some of these buttons yourself, then I would advise you to go into solo adventure, then pick ongoing voyages. That way you can choose any ship to be on and be on the original Enterprise. And then you can pick, I would advise for a new player, the Defend mission, because it's pretty straightforward and there's no transporting on that. But if you want to do some transporting, you can do the fugitive mission or the other rescue mission. This is the research mission. And if you're a new player, this is a really easy mission and you can mess around at the beginning of this one as well. At the beginning of the mission, they give you a bunch of, you either get a hell or one of the NPCs around here gives you the destinations to go to, the objectives. So they want us to go here and warp there. You know, don't go there. Don't go to any of those places yet. Bring the ship to a full stop, and then we can just jump around and play around on each of these different stations and take our time. But let's get this started. All right, so there are a lot of buttons, but on each panel there's actually only a few buttons we can use, so to speak, because there are a lot of buttons we can use on the helm or over at engineering. But let's start with this one row of toggle switches here above my fingertips. There's only one button on there we can use. Now, it's to raise the shields, and instead of, you know, just clicking all these buttons and waiting to click the one that we can actually use, there's an easier way to tell on each panel which buttons you can use. Because as you hover your fingertips over the buttons, the only ones you can use will have a white dot on them when you hover your fingertips over them. So let's toggle on the shields. That light lights up, and then we will see the blue line around the ship as the shields are raised pretty soon here. There they go. Now we're ready to move on to this big panel right here. So the first row from the bottom. Remember that it's to fire your weapons. So what kind of weapons do we have on this ship? We have phasers and torpedoes. So we have one button over here, and then we have a pair of buttons over here on this row on the bottom. So doesn't it make sense that these two that are together are a pair of torpedoes, right? And then over here we got fire phasers. Fire phasers, fire torpedoes, right? It's easy. Let's move up to the next row. Now, to fire our weapons, we would actually have to have a target selected first. If we wanted to scan a target, we would have to have a target selected. Well, in this row, we have scanner right here, and then we have previous target and next target. So on all the stations, you'll have, previous target, next target. And so let's select the target. Next target took us way up there. So let's go to previous target. And I want to see how far away that is. So I can just go to exterior view here. There we go, 12.5 kilometers and see. So we've selected target that way, and we could scan a target with the scanner button there. So scanner, previous target, next target, to cycle through the targets, either previous or next. Now you're ready for the last pair of buttons that we can use on this panel. Now we had our torpedoes down here, but they are not armed. That's up here. Armed torpedoes, and what would the other one be? Disarmed torpedoes. Armed torpedoes, the lights blink above the fire torpedo buttons, so we can't shoot them yet because they're still blinking, they're still loading. Once the lights are solid, then we can fire our torpedoes. We'll also hear that noise, distinct high-pitched noise when the torpedoes are loaded. Pretty soon here. There it goes. That's all there is to it. Now we're up at the captain's chair, and let's start on this panel on the right. There's only one button on there you can use, and there's a weird quirk about this button. It's the only button that when you hover your fingertips over it, there is no white dot, unless it's actually activated. So that doesn't help you, right? But the one button you can use on there is to activate red alert. And I actually used to use the voice commands all the time. They don't have them anymore, unfortunately. So I had to go, wait, where is the red alert? And it is the only button you can use over here. Doesn't light up with a white dot, but it's real obvious which button it would be, isn't it? Would the red alert be the yellow or green button? Probably not. It's probably got to be the button next to the red light. So there you go. That was easy. This is the captain's tablet. So we can access the local map there with the button on the top. There's only 4 buttons on here that you can use. And then the screen here is a touch screen.
I will update your panel, Captain.
The other button on the top is for accessing your objectives. So there you go. And then there's buttons at the bottom. Like I said, this is a touchscreen, so we can just select our targets by tapping on the screen here. But you can also cycle through the targets with the buttons on the bottom. Like I showed you, previous target, next target. So down here we have previous target, then next target, next target, next target, next target, previous target, previous target, previous target. But it's easier, it's more comfortable usually to use just your tapping on your fingertips. Now, if you find yourself sitting here where when you originally started the game and centered the game, as you're playing this, you find yourself having to turn your chin down your chest and turn your hand like this to use the buttons at the bottom. Well, you don't ever have to use those because you can just tap on the screen. But also, when I center myself in this game, I put my arms out and I look down. So that gives me this much more comfortable position. I can put my hands straight out here and use these buttons if I wanted to. And then it's also more comfortable to access these buttons over here. And I also get to get this good look here at my beautiful, sexy Android legs. So I like that a lot. Now let's move on over to the left side of the captain's chair. There's only 4 buttons on this panel that we can use. The first one is to answer hails. With that yellow, big yellow Jolly Rancher, the vertical one. And then we have a group of 3 buttons here that are for previous target, next target, and then confirm target. Right? You're cycling through targets with these. You pick one and then you want to confirm that's the target destination. It's the same way up at the helm, previous target, next target, and then confirm the target destination on the maps. What maps am I talking about? Well, here's your local map. So the way the maps always go are, first, if they get farther away, first you have local, then you have impulse, then you have warp. So here's your local map. When you're playing in solo adventure with the bots on the captain's chair, you can access the impulse and warp map. Local map. So what's the next one? Impulse map. And what's the next one? Warp map. Right? So we're learning there's a rhyme or reason to things here. That's going to be easy to remember, especially since it repeats, things, the patterns kind of repeat on different stations. But so let's bring up the impulse map here. And that's what these buttons are for. Cycling to different target destinations on this map. And there are little quirks about these maps that I won't really get too much into, but we selected particle cloud, and now the target white circle is on Mercer's End. Let's go cycle up to particle cloud and confirm that's the destination with our button here on the bottom. Just thinking about something else I'm going to show you here. Say you didn't want to go to either of these places, and you can back out of this with that back button there, the green button. Cycle over back to that. There it is. It's highlighted now. Confirm. Use the confirm button, and then we're at the previous screen. So I'm going to toggle that off. And let's skip to the last 3 buttons because we'll go back over the maps on the helm. Again, those 2 buttons will only be on the captain's chair in solo adventure with the bots. You can access the maps, the impulse and the warp map on the captain's chair, as well as the helm in solo adventure. That's not the way it was in co-op when I was playing the game a lot back in the day. I'm pretty sure it's still the same way. Last 3 buttons here. So there's your default view, a forward view, bow view, whatever you want to call it. The next button is, these 3 buttons here are for changing the views. So we have an exterior button, a chase camera, behind the Enterprise stern. And then we have a Magnify button here. So I do have selected one of these mines here. Okay, good. So it magnified, gave us a closer view of the target I had selected. Then this last button is weird because it's kind of a combination of the previous two buttons where we had exterior view and then we had a magnify view. So this is kind of a magnify target view. Like I said, it's kind of a combination of those previous two where it gives us some kind of a chase camera from a weird angle behind the ship to the target. This is just a straightforward exterior view. Magnification view of the target, and that's the only button that makes that noise. Then we have sort of a combination chase camera exterior view to the pointed at a weird angle to the target. So it's almost like you don't really need that view, but it's there, I guess, for variety. So we're all done on the captain's chair. Let's jump to the helm. And there are a lot of buttons here we can use. But let's start here at the bottom. A row of toggles. So there's your local map. What's next? Because these are the map buttons. The impulse map. So there, and remember to toggle these off because a lot of people will select the destination on these maps and then forget to toggle these off, so everybody's stuck looking at this. Toggle them off. This time let's pick a warp destination. So how do you pick the warp destination? The buttons are on this panel, and there are a lot of buttons that you can use on this panel, but what I like to do, and this is actually something more recently that I kind of came up with, divide this panel into 4 different quarters. You have your upper right corner, your lower right corner, then your upper left and lower left. Okay, so we chose one of the maps. Right now we're on the warp map, and we want to select a destination. Now on these warp maps, our objective location is marked by where a blue dot will appear, and it's on Devon. So we want to cycle down to Devon. This is real easy to remember. You just brought up the map. Just move your hand up. Previous target, next target. Right here. And then click on, there you go, Devon, and then we confirm that. Now there's a weird quirk about this map, which is that orange triangle above the orange circle should actually not appear until we confirm the target destination, you know, because that's the way it works on the impulse map, but it's always there, so there's no indication of what destination you confirm. But we confirmed Devon. It's the button above our previous and next target button. So again, you're playing, you brought up, you know, captain called out warp or impulse or warp destination. You brought up the right map. We need to warp somewhere. Oh my God, where do I go to select previous or next target? Right above those buttons. Right above them. Previous, next, and then right above those buttons is the button to confirm. So there's a group of 3 buttons there, right there. That's it. And then remember to toggle your map off. Now the next quarter on this panel that I want to show you is this one here on the lower left. So this is our steering portion of the panel. On all the other ships, you have the circle that you can use to, you know, turn left, turn right, up or down. On this ship, yeah, it's the same way. It's just, you know, these square buttons. This looks like a MIDI controller. You know, it'd be really cool, all the LEDs and everything. So, this, of course, is turn left. What's in the middle here? Up and down. So this one to the right is turn right. Or if you prefer, starboard and port side. Now, when I was a kid, I figured out an easy way to remember starboard is right, because the word right begins with an R, and starboard has 2 R's in it. And I've always remembered that ever since I was a kid. And if we were turning, it's usually faster to turn when you have some speed, so we're turning at a pretty good pace here, though. Let's jump to this quarter of the panel, right up here. So we're turning. We want to increase speed. There we go, right up here, right up top. Let's turn actually into this vector and get lined up here. Increase speed. And then full stop there. There's an extra button in this quarter here that is for full stop, but I actually always considered it part of this column of buttons here. It's increase speed and then it descends. Increase. So how do I descend? Well, or decrease the speed. It's right below it. You know, think of it as descending. Increase speed at the top, descends into decrease the speed. It descends into full stop. Right there. Easy, right? 2 more buttons in this quarter that we can use are for forward and backward, reverse. And we want to increase the speed as we reverse in this ship. So that's what we did, and I'm going to bring it to a full stop. Like I said, there are a lot of buttons here, so it does help to, you know, divide this up into 4 quarters, and then remind yourself with some of these that there is a sort of logic that you can find here. We have 2 more buttons that we can use for engaging impulse and engaging warp. Now, these buttons I always remember just by kind of where they are and the colors: blue impulse and yellow warp. So hover, there we go. Blue impulse, yellow warp, right there. Right in this upper right corner. And like I say, I always remembered by those colors: blue impulse, yellow warp. If you can't remember, try to think of this. You brought up the map, you selected the destination for the warp or impulse. How do you engage the warp or impulse? You know, we're progressing up here. Engage impulse, engage warp. It will take a few missions on this bridge, but you will get this down, I'm telling you. All it takes is some practice, and you can do this with the bots in solo adventure. And like I say, you can bring the mission to a full stop at the beginning and jump around and kind of play with this. Now you're ready for the final stretch. Engineering. Now, we have a lot of buttons over here, don't we? But I'm going to tell you again, it is pretty easy. Let's start with this panel here. It's the warp panel. It's pretty easy to remember because it's over here to the left. And there's only 4 buttons that you can use on it. So there's just something stands out about it that you're going to remember. This is where you first, everything progresses. So from the bottom, prepare warp, then you can charge the coils. So what else would you do? You would be able to cancel that, right? There's actually cancel charging the coils and cancel warp. So there are two buttons that kind of make one of the other buttons unnecessary to have, because you can prepare warp, charge coils, cancel warp, or you can prepare warp, charge coils, cancel the charging. So the blue cancel warp button is if you charge the coils but you decide, I'm not going to warp. We'll come back to something a little special about warp on this ship. And again, progresses. You want to prepare warp. So first you have to start down here and then it progresses up there. Now you have 3 panels for subsystems, teleport, using the transporter, and then the power distribution. And you're bound to have some brain farts on using these buttons, but there are some things that will help you remember and where things are or what they are. And this one is real easy. How do you remember what panel is for the subsystems? Well, look, right here, there's a subsystem, the shields. There's the health of the subsystem. These 3 bars indicate the repair crews. So you can assign 3 repair crews to your subsystems. This is the subsystem panel. Transporter says right there. This is the transporter panel. Look, here's power distribution up here, engines, shields, and phasers. This is the power distribution panel. Right? It's easy. Now let's start from the bottom here, because you can subtract or add repair crew members. So let's, and then above that, there's only 4 buttons on here that you can use. Above that is how you cycle through the subsystems. So it's either, previous subsystem or next subsystem. Just like on the other station, it was previous target, next target, previous destination, next destination, right? Cycle through next, cycle through the previous one. Warp Core likes to go out on the ship. Let's assign a crew member there. There we go. Let's go to a different subsystem. Let's say the shields are damaged. We need to add the repair crew members there. Here we go. Shields are all healed up and we need to reassign those crew members. Subtract and move to a different subsystem, and it's easy. Now let's go on to the transporter panel here, and there is an odd button here, which is to change the view of the screen above you to the same default view out there. And that is this blue button off here by itself. There you go. And then on this, so this is for transporting primarily. Let's start from the bottom and progress upwards on this panel. Tactical has scanned a vessel for a life form that we need to transport. The first thing you'll need to do is find the target. So you can do, previous target or next target. So previous target, next target, next target. Cycle to the target, you find the target. What would you do next? Go above that, we're progressing to lock on target. Then we lock on the target and it's ready to be energized. And then there's an extra button here for canceling. I don't know why you do that. Maybe the life form you locked onto actually turned out to be a known asshole, and so you don't want to transport them onto the ship. So cancel if you ever want to do that.
New contact, one enemy vessel.
So we have kind of two odd buttons here. We probably, this one I'll actually want to always use this. I'll always want to have that view there. This one you might not use. As for some reason you had to cancel the transport. Let's move to power distribution. There's only 6 buttons on here that you can use, so it's 3 pairs of buttons: subtract and add. How do you know which pair is for what? You know, you want to add power to the phasers, you want to take some power away from the shields. How do you know what pair is what? Easy. It's the same way it's laid out here. Engines, shields, phasers. Engines, shields, phasers, right? And on this ship, we can actually warp with no engine power. Let's add power, full power to the phasers. So engine, shields, phasers, subtract and add, right? Add power, and then we have some more available power for the shields. And that was the final stretch, and we're done. That was all of it. That's all you need to know. So now you're ready to play around and do some missions and get more comfortable with all the buttons, and you'll be playing with the button overlay off in no time. You just have to, it takes a matter of practice, and constantly, you know, reminding yourself, you know, the only buttons you can use have the white dot over them, and there is kind of a rhyme or reason to things. And remember simple things like this bottom row is to fire your weapons. Looks like we have phasers charged, we have torpedoes loaded, because all those lights are on. You know, here's a phaser off here by itself over here in this row, and then we have a pair of torpedoes. She's got a pair of torpedoes as well. And above here we got cycle to previous target, next target. We can scan something. We can arm torpedoes and disarm them. Over here at the helm, we wanted to pick a destination. We brought up the impulse or warp map. We wanted to select the destination. We progress up. Just move your fingertips up. Previous destination, next destination, confirm destination. And then over here in this quarter of the panel, we got our steering. How do we add speed? Up here, and then it descends. Increase speed, decrease speed, full stop. Right here is forward and backwards. Last 2 buttons on here are to engage our blue impulse and yellow warp. Right? You got it, you got it, you got it, you got it. Telling you, just a few missions, you're not going to have any problems with this. We only need to use what on here? Prepare, warp, charge coils, and then either of these buttons over here will cancel the charging coils. And then we have our subsystems, and we can cycle through the subsystems and unassign or assign crew members to fix those subsystems. We can transport somebody, so we can change the view up here, and we can cycle through next target, previous target, lock on target, energize target. We can cancel the transport. Here we have our power distribution, engines, shields, phasers, just like down here. We can, and then we can subtract or add. That's it. You got it. So hopefully you've learned a lot about how to memorize the controls aboard the original Enterprise, because it's a lot more fun to play that way. It's a lot more efficient as well, because you won't be relying on the overlay anymore and looking for the labels or the names of the different controls. You'll be able to rely on your own memory and remembering how there's a rhyme or reason to things, the logic, the progression of the buttons. So set up the missions like I've shown you. Do some practice, bring the ship to a full stop at the beginning of those missions. do the missions and you'll have this down after just a few of them. Have fun, live long and prosper, and shit.